Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Instead of talking about Pakistan's politics, we are going to talk about something which is equally important, although it doesn't give me any pleasure to talk about, but unfortunately, the kind of news story it has become, one has to address it, is about India. India, since my childhood, and since I have known India's image or I have known India's history, was thought to be an emblem of pluralism. Whether it was true or whether it was mere marketing is something that we can debate some other time. But the fact is that India was thought to be one of those few post-colonial countries where secularism and democracy used to work. But all of a sudden, we have seen since Narendra Modi's second term started that there has been a gradual but remarkable change in direction. India seems to have undermined democracy, and now pluralism is openly questioned as well. We are going to talk about that because U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedoms has released a report, annual report. It is a bipartisan commission. And in that, it recommends that India be put on the list of countries for particular concern. And that why exactly is that happening? Because we have seen many developments that took place since Narendra Modi 2.0 has taken over. One, a gradual shift in the way institutions behave, right from their parliament, which has been rendered rubber stamp, their judiciary, saffronization of their army, to now particularly victimizing minorities. And minorities, India has a population, a minority population, Muslim population of 14%. But the criticism or attacks are not limited merely to the Muslims. They are also targeted at other minorities, for example, Christians, Sikhs, and many others. We are going to talk about this sad state of affairs, and we are going to understand how things are going to unravel in coming days. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Ambassador Asif Durrani, a career diplomat, also a public intellectual, joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us. Ambassador Saab, let me ask you about this current state of affairs in India. And do you think that any country can survive this kind of bad image?
Well, you have said it so, because what India, after Mr. Modi's election, gradually it has been building hatred since 2014. But it has now reached its peak after the 2019 elections. And the steps they have been taking now, it looks as if they are taking these steps against the minority, particularly the Muslims, in a haste. And this began with the first August 5 action in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where over 9 million Kashmiris who are fighting for their right to self-determination, they were locked down, and then there were mass arrests, so much so that over 13,000 youth ranging from 13 years to 25 years, they were arrested. They were forcibly taken away from their homes and taken out of the occupied state to other jails of India. And they have been forced to submission, and they were made to sign the declaration that they will not participate in any anti-India activities. Their parents were similarly, they were forced that they will ensure the good conduct of the children. Now, this is about the occupied Kashmir and the Modi government's agenda. And then the state had been saffronized in a sense that over 800,000 Indian military and paramilitary forces, they are stationed in the occupied state for the past 3 decades. They have been further reinforced, and now it is touching almost 1 million. And this is the largest civilian to military ratio anywhere in the world.
In the world.
And this has caused the kind of alienation, it has further increased. Yes, Kashmiris are doing a passive movement. Now coming to the main India, they introduced this Citizen Act in November. And then now the citizens, the Muslims, have to in fact prove their identity as Indians. Now, if there's a poor Muslim, he doesn't have property in his name, how can he prove that he is an Indian citizen? If he is a laborer, how can he or she prove that he or she is and if they happen to be illiterate? So there are many questions which have been asked even inside India, that how you are going to snatch away the citizenship of your country. And this is a way, in this manner, they are actually creating alienation in the Indian society, which prided itself to be a secular polity. And it has been guaranteed in their constitution.
Ambassador Saab, we understand what is happening inside India, of course. But regarding India's image, because India has been selling its soft power or image quite effectively in the past, do you think it is going to affect its chances as a regional power, as a force for good?
Well, India is a regional power. The problem is that India is big, and I said it earlier also, it is a big power, but it's not a great power. That's the problem. And that would create alienation. That would create unrest within the region. That would create concern within the region. And that has been the case. Ideally, now in this coronavirus situation, the whole region should have spoken with one voice, and the whole region should have cooperated with each other. Here again,
and India keeps on attacking at low sea. Right, sir. Yes, that is a point well made. Ambassador Saab, I'm going to come back to you. Let me welcome the second guest who joins us on telephone. Brigadier retired Salim Kamar Butt is a senior analyst who joins us on telephone. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saab, for joining us. The question is about India's growing image deficit. Do you think that it is going to harm India in the longer run?
Thank you very much, Pratapji. I think Ambassador Saab very cogently expressed his viewpoint, and I agree with most of the points that he said. I think whatever India is doing now in India and Indian occupied Kashmir, especially with respect to the Muslims, and you started the program mentioning USCIRF report that calls for, that recommends India to be included in the blacklist for CPC, countries of particular concern. So it's a good development. But coming to your question, Indian war hysteria, Indian atrocities against Muslims, I think it is a very true manifestation, a very, very naked manifestation and brutal execution of RSS and BJP agenda that they had been expressing in the last, in their previous government for years and now during this current government. So they have to deliver on their political agenda. If we talk about Modi's the economic agenda, the indicators are very poor. And when we talk about his governance, again, the indicators, the grades are very poor. But when we talk about sending his message, his followers of BJP and RSS, so on the political front, he's capitalizing by creating that frenzy within India, and he's trying to deliver before the end of his second term on the RSS agenda.
Right.
So allow me to...
Brigadier Saab, I get that point. My question particularly is about India's image. I ask you because you have served abroad as well. If you are sitting in Washington, D.C., or you are sitting in London, Berlin for that matter, how would you be seeing what is happening in India? Is it going to affect your judgment about India as an ally?
Right. I think we live in a real world. We live in a world of real politics. Everything is dictated by the economic interest. When it comes to the diplomatic statements, it is all right. For example, USCIRF report is very clear Dishwale, I follow that. They are highlighting Indian atrocities against minorities. UK Parliamentary Group has highlighted. UN Human Rights Commission has highlighted. But these statements, these concerns do not matter for India. They just simply brush aside. The only thing that can hurt them is if something can hurt them economically, politically, and diplomatically as a unified thing. And what could that be?
Brigadier Sahab, in terms of realpolitik also, since you have actually built your case based on realpolitik, let me ask you another question. India might not be faring well right now, as has been pointed out by Ambassador Saab as well. When its economy is not working, when its pluralism and social fabric is actually falling apart, that is a manifestation of sickness. So anybody who actually wants India as an ally for its hardcore power, will they not be troubled by this? Brigadier Saab?
I could not hear the last part of your question, but I get the gist of it. I think India has consistently, in the last 30 years, tried to project itself 8 feet tall, which it is not. Because at home, it has got a number of problems that it has to deal with. For example, 600 million Indian living below poverty level. That is the biggest question for them. And it has a lot of distance to cover. But politically, it has so many fissures within India that they have 19 active insurgency within India, let alone the Indian occupied Kashmir. So they have the political problems, they have greater economic problems, but abroad, they project themselves as a very soft way. They're a secular state, but under Modi government, I think that fake slogan of secularism, that has been blown away. They have been unmasked. And their real ugly face is now very clear to the international community.
Right. Brigadier Saab, do stay with us. Let me go back to Ambassador Saab. Sir, since we are talking about realpolitik and India's utility for other powers, here's the biggest question. If India is afflicted by a disease of intolerance and economically it is not faring well, do you think that that will affect how Western powers see India as a potential ally, sir?
Well, even before this COVID-19, Indian economy had a problem, and it was predicted by the Indian economists that India is heading towards, low growth, and they were projecting a 5% growth, which was earlier projected as 7%. So this was there, and it will go further. Reason being that now there is a global recession, and India cannot insulate itself. And secondly, with this COVID-19 and the kind of lockdown which has now been imposed, over 200 million people are directly affected in India. Their livelihood will suffer, and they will be jobless. And joblessness in India has always been a problem, even if when India had 8 to 9% growth per annum. So in this respect, definitely when the economy goes down, economic situation goes down, so it will have an impact globally as well. It definitely will have an impact. Right now, what India could go away with was because of its economic muscle, and because it could buy things from the world. And that's why it had a nuisance value. But if it goes down, then definitely it will have an impact, and already at the
it might be having that impact already. Right, sir. Ambassador Saab, do stay with us. I'm told that a third guest joins us right now on telephone. Hamid Khan Saab, a senior analyst, joins us. Hamid Khan Saab, last time you appeared in my program, we were talking about India's image abroad, particularly in the Arab countries, because they're repeatedly, given the kind of Islamophobia that is spreading in India, there was a reaction building in Arab countries. But latest we have heard that Indian diaspora is also wary of the way things are shaping up in India. What do you say about that, sir?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Batafi. Exactly, you're right, as we were talking last time as well. But now the most significant thing is, as you have mentioned in the beginning of the program, is that, this U.S. government Commission for International Religious Freedom, which they have published a complete report, which is clearly saying that there is so many violation of, religious freedom. So it is absolutely clear to the world now that what Indian government is doing, especially we have seen since this August when they revoked this Article 370 then in
35A.
what they did, and 35A, and then since that the lockdown is carried on for over 8 months. Now,
Right.
what they are doing with the citizen amendment bill, and there was protest all over the India, and we have seen over 60 Muslims were killed by the Indian police during those protests. Everywhere we have seen one thing, that this is, the more concerned thing in that U.S. Commission report is that they are saying that there is a violence under the police, I should say the police is watching everything, and still under the police monitoring, there was violence, and the mobs of the extreme BJP and RSS workers, they were killing and attacking Muslim properties. So that is the main thing. And now this is the time when we need to highlight that thing, since we have seen that all over the world now, we have seen on this U.S. platform, it's a quite significant thing for the world to understand. Then we have seen that United Nations have already, said that this CAB bill was a discrimination.
Hamid Hansab,
So,
I'm glad that you have highlighted these aspects. The question is, if the diaspora sees it, Narendra Modi government as a liability, and if it is impacting Indians abroad as well, why do you think that the Indian government continues to do this? Because it is hurting India itself, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. It is hurting India, but it is not hurting enough for them to stop it to doing it or to think about it. It has not been hurt that much yet. The reason is because we have seen when President Trump visited India, he didn't speak a single word against that CAB amendment or Kashmir or whatever happening. So that was the main thing. As long as the world, we call it G20 or the Great 20 countries, they need to come and try to stop India. Then it will hurt them really. Then they have to think about it. Otherwise, and secondly, unfortunately, as we discussed as well, but OIC, Muslim countries, they have to come together with some kind of warning, some kind of threatening, sanctions to them. We have seen there are over 4 million Indian workers working in Gulf region. I mean, there is over $100 billion that India gets in terms of foreign exchange only from remittances in terms of from Gulf countries. These are the concerns. I think Pakistan government and other Muslim governments, they need to highlight these things, that if they really want to hurt India, they need to hurt them economically, and there they will understand that this is crossing the limits.
Absolutely, Hamid Khan Sahab. Of course, we are going to talk about a strategy to expose all these vices to the world. But right now, I want to understand how things are shaping up in India, and why is it that Narendra Modi government actually doesn't seem to be willing to stop these aspects, even though it is hurting India itself. Let me go back to Brigadier Salim Qamar Bhatt. Brigadier Saab, since we were talking about various aspects, one aspect that I mentioned during my show last week, and then we heard it also from DG ISPR, was about saffronization of Indian Army. Indian Army is a polyglot. Indian Army has many religious communities represented. But if that culture of pluralism changes and professionalism changes, don't you think that it is going to undermine Indian Army as well?
Thank you very much. It's a very pertinent point and very valid one. Saffronization of Indian armed forces is actually a greater threat to peace, regional peace in Southeast.
Go ahead, Brigadier.
when the top military brass, when the top military brass, they start spitting the political venom. That is what is meant by whatever BJP leadership is saying. If the military journals and the commanders start saying the same, that means the armed forces have been indoctrinated on far-right extremist policies of the BJP, and that is a very, very risky affair as for the peace. For example, during 2020, only in 4 months, there are more than 880 ceasefire violations along the line of control, which is far more than in a year in the preceding years. So that shows that war hysteria has been created to, one, deflect attention from the internal problem. Secondly, that flows into the execution of the RSS agenda when they say that the Kashmir problem is going to be settled for once for all. Therefore, they have to make sure that by domicile, by revocation of Article 35A and 370 that Hamid Khan Sahib was talking about, they're going to change very quickly the demography inside the valley of Kashmir, and therefore they have to keep the line of control simmering and making sure that the Azad Kashmir people do not come to the rescue in any way to the people in occupied Kashmir. So they got to do that. But this war hysteria, Pitafi Sahib, is not without preparation. For example, only during 2019, India has spent $71.5 billion on the defense spending, which is 259% more than in the last 30 years, and 37% more than in the last 10 years. So that shows the Modi government's preparation for war if it comes to push come to shove as regards dealing with Pakistan militarily. So Pakistan has to remain prepared for any misadventure across the boundary or a line of control. And today, Pakistan Chief of Army Staff was on the line of control talking to his troops, and he made it very clear that Pakistan is ready to give any fitting response to any Indian misadventure across the line of control.
Brigadier Sahib, that is a point well made. My question once again is, how is India's army, which is otherwise was thought to be professional in nature and secular in nature and has Muslims, Christians, Sikhs and whatnot, if its journals are going to placate Hindutva identity or ideology, and if they are going to play to the gallery, how is Indian army going to maintain its structural integrity, sir?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fairly undermining the integrity of the armed forces in India, which has Muslims, we have Christians, Sikhs and Hindus all. So the political picture that BJP has already created inside the country, the same kind of pictures are going to likely to emerge in the armed forces and the army, and it's very dangerous as far as India is concerned. And likewise, when the atrocities are committed against a Muslim, they won't be able to apply the Muslims or the Sikh troops against the Muslims. So the majority of the troops, come from Eastern Punjab, and they are the Sikhs, and then followed by the Muslims. So this is going to be a big setback, and Modi government looks to be insane while sovereignizing the armed forces.
Right. Let me go back to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, you have listened to our participants. There's so much going on in India. As you have pointed out, that these things don't indicate or point to a better future. If I ask you to war game it all, how do you think things will shape up, sir, in coming days?
I'm afraid that situation would deteriorate in the coming days and weeks, and that is also Indian proclivity in creating these crises. They have the proclivity to externalize the problems whenever they face internal squabbles and issues. And they have created an issue inside the country by suppressing the minorities, particularly the Muslims. Now, they have, this has created a situation not only with Pakistan. We have the traditional rivalry with India. In fact, an entire neighborhood in India is feeling disturbed and is concerned that this new wave in India is actually destabilizing, and gradually it will destabilize India from inside. And I have said it in so many times that India has actually laid the foundation of unraveling of India through persecution of minorities. Because the moment the citizens of your country, they lose their sense of belonging, so then don't expect loyalties with them, because you have already made them a suspect. And this is one point. The second is, already with regard to occupied Kashmir, India has taken steps which are also a step further towards aggravating the security situation, not only inside the occupied state, but also with Pakistan. Now you see over 800 line of control violations from the Indian side has taken place from the beginning of this year. This is the highest number ever since in 2003, when there was an understanding between India and Pakistan to bring down the ceasefire violations. At one point of time during Mr. Vajpayee's period, this had come to almost zero. Now in just a matter of 4 months, more than 800 violations are taking place. And these are growing. And now Indians are in fact targeting the civilians on our side. Our dilemma is that when we retaliate, on the other side also, we are the Kashmiris. And we cannot. We have to be extra careful. So this is a kind of a dilemma which we face along the line of control. And India is trying to take advantage of this. They are also accusing Pakistan with regard to infiltration. But this is again an excuse they are making. The purpose is that perhaps they may enact some kind of a false operation or whatever, to which already Prime Minister and the Army Chief, they have already responded, that they will be in fact responded to in the same coin. And this has been done. We have seen a post-Pulwama situation when India tried to take the liberty, and they were responded to in the same coin. So the situation is not positive.
That's a good point, sir. Let me go back to Hamid Khan Sahab. Hamid Khan Sahab, picking up the first point that Ambassador Sahab made about erosion of Indian identity among the minorities. Don't you think that this is what perhaps Hindutva regime itself wants? That first Muslims start reacting and then they say, look, these are Tukre group, they are working against India, and then they are attacked, sir.
Exactly, that's absolutely right. You know, when we talk about Hindutva, as I said in previously as well, that they are following the Chanakya ideology, where it comes that they think there is no possibility of any religion within this India, and they actually want to demolish the Muslims there with their identity. They don't want to give them any choice. But I always say that they don't understand that this is the 20th century. Over 200 million Muslims are living there. We understand that they are already suffering. They are living below the poverty line of almost 80-90% of the Muslims in India. But if you blame for COVID-19, if you blame Muslims, if anything happens there, they turn their guns towards Muslims. It is absolutely not acceptable for in any civilized society. We have seen some voices even in India where they are saying that this Hindutva policy and this BJP policy is leading to India towards a division. And I have said in a few programs as well that this Modi may be proven as a Gorbachev of India, that it will divide India in many states, and because of their extreme religion and extreme actions against Muslims, because they know that if Muslims are the biggest minority, they are their first prime target. Once they want to control them, and then it will be easy for them to do anything with the rest of the minorities. We have seen this is their policy. So that's the point where I believe that again and again that if Kashmir, whatever happening in Kashmir and whatever is happening with Muslims in India has to be shown to the world again and again, and then I would say that again the world organizations needs to come forward and to take some concrete steps against India.
Absolutely, Hamid Khan Sahab, Pakistan has been trying to highlight these issues to the world community, but we haven't seen the kind of reaction that was anticipated or expected. Let me go to Brigadier Saab and ask him about another very important aspect, that is erosion of Indian institutions. Constitution out of the window. Indian Parliament has become a rubber stamp where CAA is passed within no time, and then similarly dissent has no place there. Indian judiciary seems totally craven. Indian media totally bonkers. In that situation, where is the correction possible? Where does it come from, sir?
Pitash Saab, very aptly highlighted by you that this is the corrosion of Indian constitution by the sitting government, and in a way they are digging their own grave when they are violating their own constitution. For example, let me refer to Subramani Swamy, who said in his interview when he was asked that Article 14 of Indian Constitution guarantees equal rights to all citizens. So, laughingly he said that, well, that has been misinterpreted and misapplied on Muslims because they are not equal citizens. So it is the Indian state minister now saying that Indian Muslims are not equal citizens. And wherever they are more than 30% in any state or any country, they become a nuisance, so we have to take care of them. So how they are going to take care of them? That is by introduction of, say, for Kashmir, when we are talking about the introduction of the domicile, the Sainik colonies, the industrial zone for the Indian Brahmins. These are the kind of steps they are taking to change the Muslim demography there, so that in future, if they have to hold a plebiscite there, they with the change demography, they can hold that. But again, the Citizenship Amendment Act, which has actually put whole India under protest, not only by Muslims but other minorities also, and very sane-minded Hindus are also there. So there are going to be wider girls, more fissures within Indian society by touching upon those sensitive clauses of Indian Constitution, which had guaranteed and made sure that the unity in diversity is there, and the secularism slogan stays in place. So Modi government seems determined to undo all that. It is not only going to harm them politically or diplomatically abroad, but at home, it is going to cost them a lot. And in the forthcoming election, all the BJP followers may not be able to deliver the vote to the BJP as they had done in the past, because everybody, as you yourself highlighted, the diaspora is feeling very upset about it.
Absolutely. Do you think a correction is possible?
Correction is possible from expecting it from Modi or from BJP or RSS is hoping against the hope, because that means that they are going to go against their manifesto which they have pursued in the last 75 years. So that is most unlikely. The only change can come from within the masses. Indian Congress has to play a more prominent role in the political arena. All other smaller parties have to join hands with Indian Congress, and they have to raise their voices, because, as you highlighted very rightly, even the Indian judiciary, the top courts are also seems to be flowing with the BJP and RSS agenda, and that is something that only Indian from within India can change, and nobody from outside can help, in my view.
Right. Let me ask Ambassador Saab about possibility of a correction coming from within the system. If not, what is the way out, sir?
Well, right now, Mr. Modi is riding high, and he has gained politically. He has consolidated his position. I don't think there's a challenge within India to Mr. Modi or BJP. They have strengthened their position. The majoritism played by the Hindutva forces, it has created a fierce psychosis in the country, and I think they are enjoying the situation. They know that for the time being, it is not going to harm India, so by then they can consolidate their voting position. Economically, yes, they have not fared well, and it is going to harm them, and that is the silver lining that then other political parties, and especially it is basically the economic game that has to be played. These religious sentiments can create a euphoria for the time being, but it is temporary. And then ultimately, when it will dawn upon all the political forces, especially secular forces, and the people, when they will start feeling the pinch. So definitely then the change can come. But by then, a lot of damage would have been done to the inequality, to Indian society, and which will have a, a fallout to its neighborhood. So we are worried from the fallout. Yes.
Okay. Right. Ambassador Saab, since you were talking about these possibilities, Nazi Germany came to my mind. And there too, it seemed that the population, because of the majoritarianism, the population also changed its mind and continued till the time there was not a massive war which worked as a correction. So the correction doesn't seem to come from within India. It seems to come from without. Is it what you are saying, sir?
Well, no, it will, in fact, the unraveling takes place from within the society, within the country. Okay. Because when the minorities and 200 million Muslims, if you take the example of Muslims, is not a small number. When you snatch the sense of belonging from them, and when you make them second-rate citizens, which they already are for all practical purposes, but now you have stamped them as second-rate citizens. So in that case, then I think the Persian proverb "Thang Ahmad Bajang Ahmad" then comes true to this situation. So my
sir, but in the past 6 years, we have repeatedly seen these attacks taking place, and we haven't seen that kind of reaction coming from the population.
Not yet, not yet. Yeah. But it is, it takes time. Like Muslims, they had started passive movement through sit-ins, and which was again disrupted in New Delhi, where more than 50 people were killed by the RSS goons. So, and this was about to do, but after this coronavirus, this has come as a rescue for the Modi government. But the danger remains there because the government has not removed those causes which is causing unrest within the minorities, especially the Muslims. Yes.
Right. Right. Hamid Khan Sahab, since we are talking about possibility of a correction from within or without, one discouraging factor is India's history. In 5,000 years of Indian history, we have never seen a serious revolution. Do you think there is a possibility for any underdog to stand up and demand their rights? And if they don't actually get them, they are going to actually topple the apple cart? Is that even a possibility?
No, Mr. Patafi. To be honest, I agree with you that I don't see any underdog, trying to topple any system or anything. Especially when you look at the Modi and his agenda, they want to continue with it as it is. I don't think so that the way they have suppressed the minorities there, the way they have, doing atrocities all over India and especially in Kashmir, I don't think so there will be any, within India there will be any change internally. Yes, there is only one way to tackle this thing at the moment, which I could see, is to hurt them economically, hurt India economically. And there is a very major role which can be played by the Muslim countries. Because like they are doing bilateral trade with India of billions of dollars as UAE, Gulf countries, and they all doing other Muslim countries. Then as we have talked about the labor, then we have seen a good step was taken by Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir when he stopped that oil from exporting oil with Indian trade and everything. And it was really discussed everywhere on all the economical platforms of India that if this will continue, it will hurt Indian economy, which is already gone down less than 2% GDP growth for the last year. So this is the only way, I believe, this is the only way. Otherwise, if we think about Modi's government or BJP, they are a bunch of goons. They don't want to think about it, that what they are doing is gonna divide India into many countries eventually. This is gonna be the end if they carry on. And we have seen some statements from Rahul Gandhi We have seen some statements from Congress, but unfortunately, Congress has weakened so much within India that has never happened in the last 40 years. And the way
Congress seems to have lost its voice.
Exactly, that's the main thing. Because there is no, it looks like a one-party rule in India since the results of the last election. That is the most, as we said, that they are enjoying their majority and the army chief has become their puppet. The previous one was giving political statements. The one who's in charge in Kashmir, he was giving a stupid statements, I should say. And, you know, this is the thing that, as you have said, that even the courts are their puppets. There are kangaroo courts. They have not given any reasonable decision in terms of lockdown in Kashmir, in terms of bill or minorities. So when we talk that judiciary is in their hands, army is a puppet. So what hopes we left with? We are left with no hope. But the
and ergo, we keep on talking about Nazi Germany because the same format seems to be working. Right, sir. Ahmed Khan Sahab, I'm told that we are running short of time. Let me go to Brigadier Saab and ask him for his conclusion. Brigadier Saab, one aspect that is very important, you just mentioned Subramaniam Swamy. He is not only a lawmaker from BJP, he is a PhD in economics, and he has been teaching at Harvard as well. When such people who are actually educated lose their mind, then one doesn't know what exactly is going to happen. In conclusion, I'm going to ask you, if there is an agreement in my panel right now that India is going to have very bad repercussions, is Pakistan ready or prepared for those repercussions, sir? Brigadier Saab, can you hear me? Okay, we might have lost contact with him. Let me ask Ambassador Saab the same question. Ambassador Saab, if you think that India might actually fall apart, are the regional neighbors of India, especially Pakistan, are they ready for the fallout, sir?
Well, if India falls apart, it would be a disaster. And I'm afraid I cannot say that we'll be able to cope with it, but it would definitely pose a challenge to us. For instance, if it falls apart physically, then and if there's kind of a civil war or some unrest, then expect 10 million people influxing towards Pakistan. What will happen? So I think we have to draw nightmare scenarios as well. And then we have to look at it, how the neighborhood will react. We are a major neighbor of India, then followed by Bangladesh, and then other countries are in the South Asia region. And this would be, God forbid, this would be a very, you can say, it's a nightmarish scenario. So therefore, counsel should prevail inside India, and then international community should also play its role by counseling India that that India has to address issues, thorny issues, through the medium of dialogue, rather than
Ambassador Saab, I'm told that we have run short of time, sir. Let me thank you for your participation, for your valuable input. Let me also thank Ahmed Khan Sahab, who joined us on telephone, and Brigadier Retired Salim Qamar Butt as well, for their valued input as well. We have listened to the participants, and this discussion is very worrying, right? We keep on talking about these aspects while India's fall from grace and actually being included in this list is nothing to celebrate for anybody, especially for Pakistan. We have our own concerns. But as somebody who has repeatedly and constantly been fighting for the rights of minorities in this country, it should really worry everybody like me that India seems to be falling apart, or the idea of India is falling apart right now as we speak. The world cannot be ready, and it is quite visible. For a Nazi India, the world cannot be ready for a collapsing India. Let us hope we have better preparedness and we can affect some change, the world collectively. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.